Yes.
I mean, obsessively. There's nothing that violates the frame in the film.
Yes, but don't you feel that...
All of the violations happen elsewhere.
Yeah, but even just right outside of the frame, I feel there's a lot of, at least attempted violation going on with the way it's claustrophobic.
Sure, yeah. That's
oppressive in a way that is.
But I think that's heightened by it being too perfect. Inside the frame, it's too perfect. I mean, it's like anti-Eggleston.
Yeah. You've talked often about the importance of tone for you in your film. Even above other things like story or dialogue, or even, maybe not now, but at first, even above the idea of a script, the traditional idea of a script. Now, my understanding is that now you're working with a more full-fledged script. But the crucial notion is still that of tone. For the film, and if that's still the case, would you tell me about the tone of the mountain, what you were trying to achieve, what you were going for, and how you did that?
Yeah, I mean, I used to speak about and think about tone. I mean, it's kind of like rudimentary to my interest in the medium, I suppose, but this deals with more conventional building blocks, like a lot of, the toolbox of conventional building blocks, from the metaphor to symbolism to a more traditional 3-act structure, things that I have, been repulsed by or found problematic. I'm instead of just, I sort of running toward the trouble area of the room and using them and having a conversation with it and using them as building blocks for it. So it's become more complex than just the tonality. I used to just think of films musically and tonally, and it was I didn't script the dialogue because I realized or believed that a lot of things could be said, but the container of how they were said, the tonality of it was the real experience. The audience's actual experience wasn't happening in the content, it was happening formally through the dialogue. So that's evolved a lot for me, and so much so that now the entire film is more formal. Drastically more formal and more like obsessively so and falsely so. I mean, it's like because there's so much we're so obsessed with content, and we believe that and desire to just and are conditioned to just move straight through all of the formal attributes of anything, any messaging device, whether it's social media or cinema or anything. We just move straight through, and we're intoxicated by the narrative, and are very subject to the, strangely then vulnerable and subject to the conditions of the form, like the material of the thing, and I am really interested in feel deeply skeptical of that thing, and I mean, like, children would watch a television show and are not making all of these contextual and narrative associations that we make, but they're being deeply influenced by the look and the feel, the gestures, like these nonverbal elements. And I think that we are too. We believe that we're not, but I think we're deeply influenced by them as adults too.
And one of the first generations to grow up like that was the generation of Andy.
Right, sure, yeah.
But so I'm interested by this idea that now you've decided to engage with what you previously were trying to avoid. So that happened after entertainment, presumably?
Entertainment was the beginning of it. I mean, entertainment is full of all of this, like, pseudo-allegorical symbolism and these sort of, like, but it
seems like it's
all a red herring. It doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all dysfunctional. Like they point to things, but ultimately, I want an active experience from the viewer, and I think a lot about the threshold of the screen, you know, and our intoxication. The narrative pulls us inside. We lose, you know, our awareness of you know, the unreality of it. We lose our awareness of the frame. We lose our awareness of our bodies, you know, and we're inside the thing. But you know, that intoxication is only so, you know, bountiful ultimately, you know, I believe, and is so. I want to pull people back out and, you know, have them say, you know, like, you know, like, what is my relationship to this thing? You know, where the hell am I? You know, what is who is this person? What are they saying? You know, and be activated. You know, and yeah.
Okay, and this the notion of doing a film with elements of a biopic, at least tangentially, is that how does that relate to your style in terms of dealing with conventional narratives? Was the biopic part what started this project?
Which part?
The biopic, the telling
right. Yeah.
the story of this character was the doctor.
Well,
inspired, at least
loosely inspired. I'm more interested in the architecture of that man's life at that time and the sort of associations of it than I am. You know, that's why it's a fictionalized thing.
Sure.
It's very loosely based on the sort of fall from grace of Dr. Walter Friedman, who invented the lobotomy. It's based on, you know, there's a trueness to you know, biographical experience. It's something to hang things on. You know, I mean, it's but you know, recontextualized, it becomes something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like sampling
right. So
biography.
The first idea was not that to go back to the 50s to tell a story. It was specifically about the state of science, lobotomy, the study.
No, I mean, I was interested in the drive, this sort of utopian drive of the mid-century, you know, after the war, and I was interested in the sort of unbridled ambition and like lunge into the future and towards solutions without any sense or consideration for the ramifications that, like Friedman, you know, he just moved forward and left, you know, lives changed and irrevocably altered, and but wouldn't look back. Just, you know, just keep doing it.
Sure.
You know. Keep selling it. I know it's real. This sort of just intoxicated by his own narrative. You know, that interested me. It's felt, you know, in a way uniquely American, but also very Western. You know.
Sure.
Ultimately the 50s is in Europe and America particularly is a very romanticized era. Cinematically, socially, it is. You know, whether it's the you know, obsession with mid-century modern furniture in New York and L.A., or it's the, you know, that's or it's the you know, the Make America Great Again slogan. You know, not explicitly, but implicitly, it points to an era where America was great for very few people, a very particular demographic, white men, and history was written by those men to glorify that pocket, and that's sort of what is you know, tacitly being sold, and it's a fiction because you know, it was you know, at the expense of everyone else, and you know, we see that in a protracted sense today in the developed world. You know, the privilege that we have, we live on the backs and on the blood of the disenfranchised populations around the world. Yeah. That should be a heavy burden, you know, but it isn't.
Right, and even I think in mainstream media, there's been over the last years, there's been this sort of nostalgia about that time.
Sure, yeah,
and around it.
Yeah,
so that obviously that puts it in people's minds.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that people, you know, there's some people that I've spoken to about those, you know, those shows, whether it's Mad Men or whatnot, and they say, oh, but these characters are they're so complex, they're so conflicted, and the strange thing about it is I'm saying, well, it's just inside the narrative they are, but formally, I don't know that that's the case. I think that the representation is romantic, unabashedly, and unabashedly intoxicating. And again, if you're so obsessed with narrative, you say, oh, well, there's all kinds of criticism happening, but a child wouldn't see that criticism,
sure,
because they don't have all the associations, all the social, of the social complexities and these sort of things.
Yeah, it seems like you can't. Any way you try to slice it, you run into the same problem, because you have the opposite issue with the comedy when you put something on screen and people don't know if you're indulging in that or if you're condoning it or if you're very subtly criticizing it, and so also that becomes an issue of, is this poisonous? Is this right to show?
Yeah, but that was a bit of a conceptual experiment more than anything that film. It taught me a great lesson, and I was actually frightened and pleasantly surprised at the power that media and cinema still can have, because those sort of like, you breach the bounds of and safety of the frame and the narrative. I was thinking about, well, this film, what's left of it, is bigger than the container. The audience is part of that experience. The social, they're part of that experience. I mean, it's part of the film. So I thought I started thinking a lot about audiences in the way that Hollywood traditionally has thought about audience, well, with some of the same tools that Hollywood has traditionally thought about audiences, but the interest has been, to create a perfect consumer, and a passive consumer, and that I think is ultimately dangerous, but
that this morning I was in line for a film, and these two people, journalists, were talking about your film behind me, and one was very puzzled, and he said that, and I swear I'm not making this up, he said that, well, because the ending, I was looking at this scene with the car and the two of them, and I was thinking, I think it lacks something. Maybe if it was if we just kiss the girl, and I thought, like, that is the most exemplary piece of conclusion that you can draw about the problem that you've been dealing with for a few years now. There's sort of this need for that, like the exact same scene, but then he turns and he kisses the girl, and that somehow makes
the idea of resolution and cinematic release and catharsis, I think, is like, I understand economically how it's a model to essentially not upset audiences,
Sure.
And I don't have any animosity to audiences at all.
No, but these were critics, so...
No, I know, but I mean, I've been accused with, the comedy, for instance, of having animosity, to the audience, and I don't feel that at all. I'm questioning where the value of cinema socially,
right.
Or even just physiologically or something. I mean, how much do we really like being anesthetized, and how much do we really enjoy that sort of passive, flatlined idiocy,
Sure.
Our own idiocy. Do we really, or do we like to be stimulated and engaged? And I think those are the questions, I suppose.